Déteste Rebel News! Hey! Déteste Rebel News! True!
Hey, what the
Rebel News, they call it! Rebel News, they call it! Rebel News, they call it! Bye bye bye!
Puis la police, ça fait rien! Là, sérieusement, vous allez faire de quoi? Regardez, là! Je comprends pas le message. Qu'est-ce que vous comprenez pas? Là, ils ont de la peinture. Regarde, là, ils sont en train de s'en aller. Hey! Police! Sors de là, ils me suivent! Sors de là, ils me suivent!
Là, tu comprends-tu ce que je te dis?
C'est quand vous allez arrêter à l'évidence.
Mais nous autres, on a un travail à faire.
I actually did call this when the modern current Antifa chapters here in the US formed, which was during the Not My President protests in 2016 when Donald Trump was elected. Either that or had officially inaugurated. And I called it because every, especially socio-political group, but especially if they're political, every single one of them that forms, they form with the best of intentions, they really do. They have very honorable intentions, but they always auto-corrupt after about 2 years. So I literally called it, and I said that night, I said, 2 years. Give it 2 years, they're gonna become the most violent, loudest, horrible people. So the biggest irony of it is that the night that Rose City Antifa formed, they were one of, if not the first Antifa modern, current Antifa chapter to form in 2016 during the Not My President protests. They were and still are the biggest chapter in the United States. And the irony of it is that that night that they formed and they did their first protests, which was for the Not My President protests, they actually were hijacked, or at least I should say they were attempted to be hijacked by a group that considered themselves or called themselves anarchists. And I have a very personal issue with people calling themselves anarchists when they're clearly not at all representative of anarchy. Completely different story for a different day, because I, at my heart, am a true anarchist, a world without rule, governance, or authority. That is the true original definition of anarchy. But anyway, they attempted to hijack them, doing exactly what Antifa does now. And of course, another huge piece of this that is ironic and kind of funny, even though it's a little painful at the same time, about Antifa is the fact that they became exactly what they are formed and they're supposedly to oppose and to protest against and to be in solidarity against and everything, which is fascism. It's all the typical things. It's the aggressiveness, it's the violence, it's the gatekeeping, it's the intentional segregation, in this case under the guise of equality and equanimity and diversity and inclusion and all this weird shit. They became everything that they swore that they were formed to be against. And they just keep getting worse with time. And so that's why when you hear people that are usually more far right say, oh, it's Antifa, they're doing all their typical things, they're not actually wrong.
Marvel at this spectacle of Stonehenge being desecrated in the name of sanctity. This can't be the answer, can it? That can't be the answer. I'm so sympathetic to people with a variety of perspectives on issues relating to the environment and the idea that we should revere and love nature. I can't imagine a future where you'd go, thank you for what you did on Stonehenge, because it really woke up a lot of people to issues around the environment that they were just not willing to address otherwise.
I seriously cannot stand people like that. The term insufferable is literally created for exactly that exact person. Those exact kind of people. There's nothing that they do in logic. There's nothing that they do with any common sense. They just do it because they want attention. They are, by definition, attention whores. That's what they're doing it for. They don't actually care about what they supposedly are standing for. That's why they never actually give any message. Sure, they have it on their shirt, just stop oil. What are you doing? What the fuck does that do? To spray paint a bunch of stones that somebody a few thousand years ago, probably the Picts, went and put up together, which is in itself a marvel, because how the hell do you do that without tools? But like, huh? It's a fucking sundial. But for real, like, the Just Stop Oil protesters are not protesters, they're just attention whores. They're the worst. They're arguably the literal worst. Like, Antifa is aggressive, they're just there to instigate, they're just there to stir up as much shit as they can. And yet, I still feel like, even with their attacking people, Just Stop Oil's more insufferable and way worse. Because these people do the exact antithesis of exactly what they say they represent, which is to try to stop the oil and try to stop greenhouse gas emissions and everything by, their most common thing, is going to the busiest possible thoroughfares, highways and freeways, and shackling themselves to, like, cinder blocks, concrete, slabs, trailers, vehicles, whatever, in the middle of the road, and they will stay there into perpetuity to protest internal combustion engines and oil and exhaust fumes and everything else, while all the exhaust fumes stack. They only hurt the environment even more intensely by doing that. That's why they're the exact antithesis. They are the literal polar opposite of what they say they represent, and that they're there to protest and make a message about. What they stand for, because this is what they do, proving they don't actually give a fuck at all about what they claim to give a damn about. They don't give a goddamn flying fuck. All they're there to do is grab as much attention as possible and as many headlines as possible, and that's it. They're literally hurting the environment by doing what they do. They're helping the fossil fuel companies by doing what they do. And furthermore, they're giving environmentalists, a horrifically negative name and reputation by doing what they do. I hate it. So, here's the final story on the whole protesting thing. So, ultimately, the major point I want to make about these kind of people, these protesters, which are not protesters at all. These are the hypocrites, the biggest hypocrites we have in the world right now, in our quote-unquote Western society, because they do everything the opposite of what they claim to be there for. And the big question you have to ask yourself with these people is this: how the hell are they helping any kind of a cause? Like, just think about it real quick, because does that make you want to listen to them? Does that make you want to take their side? Does that make you empathize with them by them being absolute fucking asshats? By doing tons of horrible, destructive shit? By being aggressive and mean and cruel and exclusionary and everything else? No! I was originally trying a few weeks back to make videos on a specific set of protests, which was the whole anti-Zionism and Palestinian genocide protests that were going on, specifically at PSU, Portland State, because they were hijacked by guess who? Antifa, as always. And so they just turned it into vandalism session and everything else and whatever. And so then I tried again, after a couple of times of trying that, I tried again when I thought I could get it shorter and more concise and just talk about protests in general. I felt like that was right. Well, turns out apparently now seems to be the right time, but apparently via Instagram.